Gavin McInnes is a right-wing commentator. I think he also co-founded Vice a long time ago, but ever since he lost his mind, he hasn't been associated with them anymore. But he decided to use MLK Day to shit all over MLK.
The speech that put him on the map, of course, the speech everyone refers to, the speech everyone remembers is, "I have a dream!"
Yes, and parts of that were plagiarized from Archibald Carey Jr., 1952 speech from another black preacher, so he was appropriating black culture in that speech. And I think his PhD dissertation, large chunks of that were plagiarized, and there was one other thing. What do I have here? His first public sermon, he plagiarized parts of that. So yeah, he was a word thief. And that's like, if you're a comedian, joke thief, you don't like them. I'm a writer, I don't like plagiarists.
And it wasn't just the speech he plagiarized, it was his dissertation. His PhD was largely false, was it not?
Yes. And he was a doctor. I always made the joke, people never ask what he was a doctor of, and I always say podiatry. But I think it was theology, right? But yeah, he plagiarized huge parts of his dissertation. Allegedly. I wasn't there. But that doesn't get around much. All right.
Okay, so
But again, that's not the worst of what he's done.
Right. Let's get into the worst.
Philanderer.
What would you say the worst is that he's done?
Well, according to Ralph David Abernathy, cited by Michael Eric Dyson, who's a real bulldozing buffalo of a pro-black activist these days, the morning of the day he got shot in Memphis, he had spent the night, MLK had allegedly spent the night with 3 prostitutes. That morning, he got into a violent fight with a white prostitute. And here's, citing Ralph David Abernathy here, King shouted and knocked her across the bed. It was more of a shove than a real blow, but for a short man, he was 5'7", and I can't make enough of that, Martin had a prodigious strength that always surprised me. She leapt up to fight, and for a moment, they were engaged in a full-blown fight, with Martin clearly winning. Okay, not one to judge here, but hey, if I'm going to get judged, I'm going to drag him down with me.
Yeah, and that guy who said that, he's, again, people don't know who he is. He's a black civil rights activist. We've heard this rumor quite a bit, that Martin Luther King indulged in white prostitutes. I remember hearing a quote, I think it was the CIA, who said that he was having sex with these prostitutes, and he'd say, "I'm fucking for Jesus now."
The quote I got was, "I'm fucking for God." The problem, and I hate this, his records won't be unsealed until 2027. I bet there's a lot of fun stuff in there.
Oh, wow.
They were, I think it was the order of his widow. They were sealed for 50 years, so we won't know that. But I'd love that to be verified. That's hilarious. Yeah, I gotta say that one.
Well, you hear them a few times.
I gotta take that line.
You hear about the white prostitutes a lot. I've even heard accusations that he used church money to
what I heard was Southern Christian Leadership Conference money. I'm not sure if that's church money or that's a private organization, but yeah, to have orgies. And hey, I think if you're going to have orgies, do it on your own time.
Do it on your own time, your own dime, and in private.
Bit of a leech. Yeah.
Now, this is just salacious gossip.
Those are nanny state orgies that he was having. Salacious gossip. Go ahead.
But there's fundamental problems with the man. For example, he was a fervent communist.
Oh, that was fucking adorable. As time went on, you got a better sense of exactly where they're going with this and what their intention is. So let's walk through it here. They start by going, hey, ease into it. He was a plagiarizer. He was a plagiarizer. So he used words that other people had used before him. And that's, hey, sure, MLK is great, but that seems pretty unethical to me. Doesn't it seem pretty unethical to you? And he's a philanderer. He's a philanderer. The things he did with his dick are not wholesome. And that, I guess we're building, a case here for giant character flaws in this so-called great man. And he used prostitutes, and he even dared to say, you want to talk about committing blasphemy. He said, "I'm fucking for God," when he had sex. By the way, what did they let the cat out of the bag there a little bit. Didn't even realize it, though, because they're giant fucking morons. But Gavin McInnes said, yeah, I saw the CIA said. So your source for the claims you're making, it's the CIA, and you believe it. Well, I'll tell you why they believe it. Because they're bigots. They call Gavin McInnes, he's been described as alt-light. So you have Richard Spencer, who's the alt-right, who at least has the courage of his convictions to come to his conclusions and say, yes, I believe Jews are inferior and I believe black people are inferior and I want an ethno-state. So at least he takes his arguments to their logical conclusion. He's still a horrendous guy and he's 100% wrong. But Gavin McInnes, he plays footsie with that movement. He's I kind of think black people aren't equal, and I kind of think Jews are evil, but I'm not actually going to say it. I'm going to tap dance around it. And then when people go, hey, man, you seem like you're a bigot. Oh, how dare you? I'm not a bigot. I just play footsies with bigots. So since that's what their beliefs are, they're willing to just swallow hook, line, and sinker any information that fits their narrative. It's confirmation bias 101. So what they're doing is saying, oh, let's take the word of the CIA, who are most known for overthrowing foreign governments and putting in fascist dictator puppets that serve U.S. interests. Now, if you say, Kyle, that's way far back in the past, that's not the CIA anymore, but the CIA recently has done what? Oh, I don't know, fucking torture, sleep deprivation, hypothermia torture, where, by the way, somebody died, and of course it was an innocent person who died as well. Mock burials, threatening to rape and kill family members. The list goes on of torture that they did that they got directly from a communist Chinese manifesto on how to torture. That's the CIA. And these idiots are like, according to the authoritative, not at all, impure or immoral source, the CIA, they say, did you know it was the FBI that sent a letter to Martin Luther King Jr. trying to get him to commit suicide? It said, we know about what you're doing. We know about all your affairs and you claim to be a moral man. You're not a moral man. Maybe you should kill yourself. So the same deep state, the same intelligence agencies that were undermining Martin Luther King every step of the way are the same people that come up. He screams, I'm fucking for God when he... Really? You believe that? Are you that much of a sucker? But it's not that they're suckers. It's that they're bigots and this suits their narratives. They go, okay, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that even though it's unquestionably complete and utter bullshit. But they ease into it, and then what do? They finally admit what they're really saying. They go, well, he was a bit of a leech. Martin Luther King, yeah, he was having nanny state orgies. The government was funding his orgies. See, ease into it, and what they're doing is taking every negative stereotype about black people. You know how they are. They're fucking not honest, plagiarizer. They cheat on their fucking wife, philanderer, use prostitutes, and he committed blasphemy. He said, I'm fucking for God. And, of course, fucking moocher. You know how they are. Bit of a leech. Martin Luther King Jr., bit of a leech. And then at the end, well, he was a communist. There you go. Why didn't you just fucking say from the beginning? Goddamn leftists. Leftists are wrong by definition. So even though Martin Luther King has this amazing legacy where he fought for equal rights, he got it in some respects in the sense of the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, but he continued to fight for people to have a living wage, continued to fight for unions, fought for a single-payer healthcare system. He said inequality in healthcare is the worst form of inequality. He fought to end U.S. imperialism. He said, my government is the greatest purveyor of violence on earth today. He was fighting against the Vietnam War. So here's a guy who's fighting for every leftist policy position. He described himself as a democratic socialist. And what do? Smear him and just say he's a communist. So how good is the guy really? So notice the progression they did there. Attack his character. And what they do is you start out attacking his character to undermine his ideology. That's the whole goal here. Attack his character to undermine his ideology. And then once you set the table, you let the cat out of the bag and say, he's a communist. So he's a bad, terrible guy. Communist. This is the anatomy of a smear. That's what you just saw. Because these guys are smear merchants. See, if he just came out at the beginning and said, Martin Luther King, no good commie. He's a leech and a no good commie. That's too obvious that you're a foaming at the mouth bigot and a far right-wing lunatic. That's too obvious. So what you do is you have to set the table. I don't know, plagiarizer, philanderer, use prostitutes, then you ease in a bit of a leech, a communist. So that's what they're doing here. They're doing personal attacks and they're smear merchants. And weird that this is what they spent MLK Day doing that. That's almost exactly what giant foaming at the mouth racists would do. Smear a great man based on personal failings. By the way, to the extent that this shit is true, I don't believe most of it. Some of it's probably true. We know he had affairs, for example. But they never used that against Trump. Weird. A story just came out about Trump paying $130,000 to Stormy Daniels, a porn star, to keep quiet an affair that they had. But you don't even need that example. Who cares about the recent example? What about the I grab him by the pussy, I don't even wait comment that he made? What about that? That's an admission of sexual assault. He said, I don't even wait. Don't wait for what? Consent, dipshit. So you have a guy who clearly, obviously represents the opposite of the so-called wholesome family values that you guys say you believe in, but you don't mention it in the case of Trump. You do mention it in the case of MLK. And by the way, let's face it, it's a recurring theme that it's characters on the right who tend to argue, oh, family values and morality and home life is really important. And they're the ones who say nuclear family, nuclear family, nuclear family, this is important. Usually people on the left, they care more about larger societal issues like poverty, like militarism, like equality. So they don't put the onus on the family shit. You guys do. But shocking, when there's a giant failing, according to your own standards of your own daddy Trump, shh, let's take MLK Day to smear him. Let's smear MLK. And at the end of it, just let the cat out of the bag. He's a communist. That's, he's a bit of a leech. You know how those black people are. Ooh, did I say that out loud? No. MLK was a great man. Frankly, I don't give a fuck what he did with his dick. But I don't make that an issue when I disagree with the people either. Go look at how many segments I've done where my focus is Trump's dick. On the sexual assault one, that's different because he's been in a sexual assault. That's a crime. But for just cheating, he's an asshole, but I'm not going to use that as, this is why I'm against him. No, I'm against him because of fucking war and because he's doing Goldman Sachs bidding and he's against the middle class and yada yada. But these guys here, they're nothing but smear merchants. They're nothing but smear merchants, and they're trying to tear down a man because he fought for a living wage, because he fought for equal protection for minorities under the law, because he fought against militarism, he fought for unions. They're not tearing him down despite of all the good things he did. They're tearing him down because of all the good things he did. Because they're against those populist left values that the overwhelming majority of the American people believe in. They're against those things. They can't just come out and say they're against them, because that'd be too obvious that they're loathsome cretins and idiots. So they ease into it. And then personal failings. Let's attack his character. Hopefully you think my attacks on his character undermine his ideology. Personal attack, smear. And then at the end, he's a bit of a leech, and you know how they are, and he's a communist. So, little weasels is what they are. They don't directly engage on the policy substance because they know they can't win on the policy substance. So, smear, personal attack, obfuscate, deflect, and then there are little cracks that show their true agenda, citing the CIA as their fucking sources, calling him a bit of a leech, and then finally, a communist. So, hey, at least you know what these guys are about now, and you choose whether or not you think they're worthy of your time to listen to them.